Hello, Paul.
Hi Holly, how you doing? How you doing, Dave?
I'm
Very
good. Thank
good.
you. Welcome back.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for waiting for us. I hope you received my message.
Yeah, no worries at all.
You know, rockers, we got delayed. We want everything to be perfect. We're not going to go on stage until everything is perfect, right?
Totally concur.
Thank you. Thank you. We don't want to disappoint.
Well, it's Friday night for you, right? Are you in Enbro?
Yeah, I am, and it's dark and cold, so pretty much standard.
Thought it was supposed to stay lighter later.
We're about 2 months off before it's light at this time of night.
Yeah.
It's
Don't
gorgeous in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I was just going to say, don't tell me the sun's out and it's gorgeous.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
It is
don't.
just another
Dave.
beautiful day in paradise. I don't know why anyone would want to live anywhere else, but you know, it's your choice.
It's really not nice. I mean, you don't want to tell anyone it was 85 degrees yesterday.
Yeah, no, stay away from it. We have enough people here. Don't come living here.
I'm not listening now. I turned at 85 degrees is when I shut off.
I mean, it is honestly, I should be wearing shorts right now. It's just
All right.
all right. Well, yeah, we're gonna yeah, you know, was it like Arena Rock was sunny, you know, it was just about having a good time, right?
Exactly.
Hi.
Okay,
So
how much
hi.
time? Oh yes, how much time do we have with you first?
But as long as you want, as long as I'm here at your disposal.
Okay, love
Well,
that.
Thank you. All right. I gotta know what prompted this book. Is it? I mean, we know you do the rock thing, but radio. What prompted it?
It's one of those things that lots of things coming together at once. I'd done a memoir. I'd ghostwritten Steve Lukather's memoir, and in doing that, there was the sort of realization of just how many records those bands had sold and how popular they were at one point. And then just the story that I think everything starts with, is there a story behind it? And this felt like the story of an era. You'd got radio, advent of MTV, probably the last time when music wasn't necessarily completely image based, and a bunch of people who, and again, an era when people sold vast amounts of records, and the songs have endured. So it seemed like there really hadn't been anything written about it of any real substance or depth about that music as a whole. So it just made me want to do it all the more.
Are you trying to create like a yacht rock moment? I mean, there's always this genre of, yacht rock had been forgotten, and then it's kind of come back with a vengeance. And now you have this, AOR. I read an article, because I'm in this algorithm, I get all these music articles, but there was AOR arena rock was one of these forgotten genres. That people that board in, the alpha, Gen Alpha doesn't know what arena rock is. Are you, is this a way to kind of like reinvigorate, like this was a thing, this was huge, this music was vital?
I'm not sure. It's because it's never really gone away. I mean, if you look at the streaming numbers, "Don't Stop Believing" by Journey is the most downloaded song of the 20th century. So I think the audience is massive, and the audience has never really gone away from it. Journey and Def Leppard are still going out and filling stadiums. I think what, for me, the interesting thing was that just the lack of, within that mainstream, the lack of critical acclaim or even acknowledgement that it got. If you think that Journey never had a cover of Rolling Stone magazine, I've never been on the cover of Rolling Stone, which is, to me, is astonishing when you think of the span of what Journey have done, and certainly the way they were between Escape and Frontiers, that they're not referenced at all. I think quite a lot of people are still surprised to find that Toto were the house band on Thriller.
Yeah.
And I think all those things, these are people who were, whether you like the music or not, they were exceptional musicians. And I guess another thing about the book is it's one of the last times that people actually went into a recording studio and made records to tape by sitting around in a room and actually playing together. They were exceptional musicians. So I'm not sure it's ever went. I think it's more a celebration for people who love the music, that it did amount to something, and there's a reason why it's still enduring.
Okay, so you did say the most streaming of the 20th century. Do you mean the 21st century?
No, I mean a song that came out in the 20th century.
Oh, okay.
It's the. I mean, it's hard. The last time I looked at it, it goes up every time you look at it. It's I think it's pretty much on for 1.5 billion streams at this moment in time.
What I loved about it, and I enjoy reading the memoirs, but what I loved is that you covered, it was the whole genre as opposed to just the one band. And as a fan of the music, and as someone who grew up with the music, and for anybody reading it, it's got what you want from a like a biography. You want the behind the scenes, you want the personality, you want the music, you want the studio stuff, but it covers all the bands. And I was, as a fan, I thought that was a really nice way to go about it. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, thanks. I mean, I think that's been said to me a few times now. It's the nicest, but the fact that it's music that people grew up listening to, and I think that's, people seem to be responding to the fact that I listen to this music and now I can actually read the whole thing, and it did feel like a whole story. I think all these things, non-fiction books, to me, start with, is there a story with a beginning and a middle and an end? And this felt like it had that, and a through line right away.
So you had on the cover, or the era is 1976 to 1986. Is it Boston's debut that's the beginning, or what do you see as the beginning album, and what is the bookend? What ends this era?
Well, I mean, there has to be, like I said, there has to be a start and an end point, and yeah, Boston's debut album absolutely is the start point. I think in the book, or when we were talking about the book, because you talk to publishers and things like that, the Boston album, I think the fact that it had a spaceship on the cover was kind of pertinent, because it did sound at the time, like a book that was beamed in, like music that came from outer space. It was from another galaxy. There was nothing that sounded like it. So that's the start point. The end point felt like that point. Bon Jovi releasing Slippery When Wet, Def Leppard Hysteria, Aerosmith Permanent Vacation, where there's very much the sound of AOR in those records. But like we said, they were much more moving into image oriented as well. Bon Jovi did not look like REO Speedwagon. Bon Jovi looked good on MTV, and I think that's the shift and the change. And within 4 or 5 years of that, you've obviously gone into Nirvana and all the rest of it. It was pretty much the point at which MTV was peaking, and bands, like, I guess you call them the hair metal bands, were starting to become more prevalent.
So where were you during these years? Were you in Scotland, in England? Were you in the US?
I'd like to say I was in the womb, but I'd be lying.
We're not fooling anybody.
I was in England. I was growing up in England, and another thing that I found out about this music, that I there was no way of accessing this music at all if you were growing up in England at the time. Radio didn't play it, TV didn't cover it, and it wasn't really until Kerrang! Magazine came along, which was 1981, 82, that I even saw a Picture Journey or a Foreigner. And it was really through those that was your point. And there was one radio show. It was a late night radio show on Radio 1 called the Friday Rock Show, with a guy called Tommy Vance who had a whispering voice. And he would play American rock music, and that was the only way you got to hear it. And that you had to sit until midnight to be able to do that as well.
It must have been. I would imagine it was huge.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think there's something that's the thing that I'm sure in America. We were talking earlier before we started the interview about it being 85 degrees in America. I'm sure the shake balls and palm trees, but to a kid growing up in England at the time, there was something hugely aspirational, glamorous about the thought of America and American music. It was this place that was unimaginable, larger than life, and that music to me seemed to embody it. It was the sound of driving down an open freeway with the top down, sun out, palm trees, swimming pools, and it's never changed from that for me.
And as music fans growing up in the States, and especially in Los Angeles, that we were looking to the British bands, and it was so, we were combing the record stores, and we were listening to Rodney Bingenheimer and just looking for the British rock.
Yes, and it's the way it comes backwards and forwards, because I mean it doesn't work in all sorts of music, be the blues, be it AOR, whatever it is. You know, you can sing about an American city, you can sing about going to California, you can sing. In Britain, we don't have that. There is no one who sounds glamorous singing about going to Cornwall or Devon. It's just incredibly parochial. And I think that it had this otherworldly sense. I think Joe Elliott says in the book that everything he knew about America, he knew from listening to music and from absorbing music and lyrics.
Yeah, that's how it's always been. I mean, that's how Mick and Keith got together, because they had, love of the blues music. So yeah, that, just amazing. So you kind of the one thing about arena rock bands, it seems like it's kind of and maybe this is why they weren't on the cover of Rolling Stone. What's this guy's name? Herbie Herbert is kind of like the Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein. I'm going to assemble this super group. Toto is a bunch of musicians that just got together. It's not like the Rolling Stones, where they met in grade school and they've always, they had this bonding, they, before they became a band, they had like this great origin story. Toto is just like these amazing musicians that just like, hey, we should get a band together, but we need a singer. And same with Journey. Journey didn't even want a lead singer. So, it was like managers that kind of assembled these, just based on what you were telling in this book. That was a lot of these bands were just kind of assembled by other people, not by kind of organically, I guess, is what the word I would use.
Kind of. I mean, I think if you take the Toto thing, David Paich and Jeff Porcaro had met as high school kids. I mean, they'd met through the dads, because the dads were both Joe and Marty Paich, Joe Porcaro, both venerated jazz musicians and arrangers. So they'd met through them, but they were playing in a high school band around California. And then Steve Porcaro and Steve Lukather, who were a few years younger, did exactly the same, graduated through high school bands. And yeah, it was Columbia Records saying to them, after they'd played with Steely Dan and Boss Skaggs, it would be an idea if you formed a band. But they recruited family and friends. They didn't, cast their net wide, and it certainly wasn't managed in that sense. Journey, I think, the musicians in Journey, certainly Herbie Herbert knew them from being a roadie with Santana. They were all musicians, and they were musicians who played around that area. His idea was to do something like the Wrecking Crew and form a band in San Francisco who could back people on record. So I think there's elements of that. But I think if you like REO Speedwagon, if you take them, REO were playing around the Midwest for years and years and years, and they grew out of a bunch of friends in university. So I think there is that as well. It's probably just not as, I think they were tarred with that. Those bands have been tarred with this notion that they were corporate rock bands and that they were somehow formulaic. And I think certainly the prime movers in that were anything but. You're talking to them, you find out that records, they weren't sitting around stroking their chins and trying to work to a formula. They were making things up on the spot.
Yeah. Did you interview Herbie Herbert? He sounds like a lot.
No, unfortunately, Herbie's passed now. So he's look. I had when I was working as a music journalist on Kerrang and Q. I did have contact with Herbie. He would intermittently message me with some band or other that he'd picked up long after he'd stopped doing Journey. And he was hilarious because he was larger than life.
Yeah, it seems like that.
Yeah, but and you don't have to look hard to find a great Herbie quote, because he spoke his mind. Let's put it that way.
Well, speaking of personalities, and I know you have interviewed a lot of the artists, but specifically like Dennis DeYoung, who just, maybe a little angry.
Dennis, I laugh just at the mention of Dennis. He was brilliant, Dennis DeYoung. It was an interview conducted over Zoom, so he was sat in his home recording studio, surrounded by gold discs on the wall. And I think that's maybe that's that in an oral history and in a dry print format, you don't get the laughter. You don't get that. He's just a very bright man and a very, very funny man. And I spent couple of hours just laughing because he was great. He was, and I thought he was very erudite, and just a witty man. And a lot of what comes across in print as cold and hard is actually done with a nudge and a wink, I think.
Well, that's really nice to hear. Really nice because he comes through as harsh. He's a little bit harsh, but we love the music, and I know he also, which I don't think I realized he's a little older than, I mean, he was an older musician, so he was just all about the music and not necessarily about the rock stardom.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting thing, that he's the complete antithesis of that whole sex, drugs, and rock and roll thing. He was a married
Yeah.
man when they started the band, and he said, his wife Suzanne, he said there was that I was settled, I was going to be a wage earner. So he never ever. I think he said he. I'm not. I think other than the odd glass of wine, he doesn't drink. Certainly never taken drugs, um, and it was all about craft. It was about that's what it was for him.
Yeah. Tom Scholes as well. Did you ever interview him?
I didn't interview. I won't share some of the stories I heard about Tom Schultz, and the one guy I did speak to said I'd escaped lightly by the fact I hadn't spoken to Tom Schultz. But I can't. I mean, that first Boston record, as we said, it's a great record. It's still a remarkable record. Um, I think the fact that Tom largely made it on his own in the basement of his house without social contact with other human beings might have a lot to do with it. I did speak to John Kolodner, the famous A&R guy, who'd loved that album, and then he years later got to work with Tom, and he seemed scarred from the experience. Let's just put it that way.
I guess when you're a genius or you perceive yourself as a genius, other people are just kind of, hanging.
He is.
I don't know, crucial to your orbit. I don't
This
know.
guy went to MIT, right? He's a genius.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that Mick Jones from Foreigner touches upon. Mick produced the Van Halen album when the first album with Sammy Hagar, 5150, and he was talking about Eddie Van Halen, and he said, if you're that gifted in one area, it's almost like God or whoever takes something away from you in another. You can't be that good without having to pay a price in some other area of your life. And he certainly had, I think he saw the Van Halen's father almost goading the two brothers into fighting with each other as like a means of entertainment. So yeah, I think you're right. I'm not sure you can be. I think the same. If you read some of the quotes from Herbie Herbert and others about Steve Perry as well, that voice is a voice from. That's a blessed voice. You're born with that voice. You can't train for that voice. But I think Steve Perry's a complicated guy as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of it's an oral history. Did you? How much were you pulling from other interviews, or how many people? How many artists were you able to get a hold of that you talked to that are like current interviews, and how many were pulled from other sources?
I think the last it's something like 60. There were 60 people that I spoke to for the book over the course of writing the book, and then the rest it probably works out about 60-40, I think. So the 40% is people who are either no longer with us, who couldn't be reached, or simply didn't want to talk or declined to talk. I think largely, as Holly said, because it was a book about lots of bands rather than their banding specifically. But yeah, I spoke to about 60 people over quite a long period of time, which was fascinating, as you'd imagine.
I would imagine, yeah. Did you talk to Irving Azoff? Is he?
No, Irving was one of those. I don't think. I think Irving's quite cautious about.
I would imagine. That's why I was like, you got to get this guy.
There's no winning for Irving in talking about that and going back and revisiting that era.
Yeah, he doesn't need to.
No,
exactly. He won. Congratulations, Irving. You won.
Yeah. Okay. Then tell us something about. So Dave and I have a thing. We joke about Don Henley. I'm a huge fan of Don Henley solo, Don Henley the personality, Don Henley the Eagles. Dave likes to poke fun that he doesn't have a sense of humor. He has a great sense of humor. Tell us.
Well, I spoke to Danny Korchmar, and Danny, as you know, was one of Don's collaborators. Produced certainly the first 2 or 3 solo albums and played on those records, and he was Danny's brilliant. Danny doesn't pull his punches either.
Yeah.
And he was saying that he was serially fired by Don Henley over all sorts of things. And he did say, Don Henley's an incredible talent, as we know. And he said, but there was one time they were working on the Building the Perfect Beast record. The sessions were dragging on. So Danny, it was his wife's birthday, so he invited Don and other friends out for dinner to celebrate his wife's birthday as a way of sort of easing tension and a bit of R&R. And he said, at the end of the night, the bill comes for the meal. Danny put his credit card down, and then everybody else just threw their credit cards in. So the bill gets split. Danny goes home with his wife. No one thinks any more of it. And he said about 5 days later, he got a letter from Don Henley saying that was completely out of order, expecting the rest of us to pay for dinner, and concluding with Don firing him from the record because he'd not picked up the bill. Danny said, Danny was obviously used to this by then, so he said he sent a letter back that was equally to the point and rude. And 2 weeks later, they went back to work together again as if nothing had happened. And I think Danny concluded and said, I should have picked up the bill, but I didn't really think about it. As for that being the reason to being fired from a music project, that's a bit of a stretch.
And that was, what was that, like 86, 80. So that was the end of the Innocents, I guess.
Very much
very much so. Oh, and that's how they got the title of the album.
Very good, thanks.
Then you have personalities that or collaborators like Bryan Adams and Jim Vallance. It seems like they had a lovely partnership, or they've had a lovely partnership for so many years, and just completely, in sync with each other. Is that's my perception? Not so much. Yeah,
I think they like all people who work closely together. I spoke to both of them, and the picture they painted was brilliant. They started off writing in Jim's basement of a house he was sharing in Vancouver. He told me, Jim told me about them writing Summer of '69. So they literally sat across from each other in chairs with notepads that were and went line by line through their childhood, almost exchanging lines and how they were growing up and what they remembered of that. And I think, they worked incredibly close together. I think they did almost too close. I think at the point they became hugely successful, the Into the Fire record, which was the one after Reckless, I think they found that difficult. I don't know whether they had a falling out or just a parting of the ways, and they didn't work together for quite a long time after that. And then they're now back together and they do work together. But I think that's the thing, isn't it, about music that's really interesting? It is collaborative largely, and the way you spark off certain people, you can't replicate that chemistry you get with one other person or a group of them.
Yeah.
So that leads into one of the words in the title is power ballad. So Bryan Adams, power ballad, you think power ballads. How essential was this for bands of this era to create a moment that would get on radio and just that would reach the masses? If they really release something that, we need something that's going to be bigger. Or did you have many stories of that, of like the importance of the power ballad?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, if there's anything that AOR is synonymous with, it's the power ballad, and it develops over time, doesn't it? I think I think Steve Lukather is someone who has an opinion on everything and is usually very, very funny and to the point on it. And he said, we all had, as it progressed, it was the one thing everybody needed. I think what the book says, and it's implied in the title, is they all knew what worked on radio. They were brilliant pop songwriters. I think that's why the music's enjoyed. That they knew how to get to the chorus quickly. There was not a lot of fat on those songs. They knew how to make them memorable. And the one thing that worked better than anything else on American radio was that big swelling ballad. It was kind of by the 80s, it was expected that pretty much every record would have the big ballad on it. And it's probably one of the things, as you get to 86, that it became a cliche, and that did become formula. And that's one of the reasons, I think, why the music faded out for a long time.
Okay, so that leads me to cocaine.
Yes.
An obvious segue.
Yeah. So, all right. So, how prevalent was that in the studio, or like, oh, just as far as like to radio people, as far as to record people, creating the records? How prevalent? I guess it was enough to put it in the title of the book. So, tell us about cocaine.
Yeah, and I think it was one of the accoutrements to the music and to the lifestyle as much as anything else. And Lukather again, and you could probably anything that you want validate Lukather as the person who will validate for you. He remembered. He said everybody was, and if they weren't, they were lying. And he said, including the gardener and the pool keeper. But he remembered going into Giorgio Moroder's studio and said that there would be bowls of cocaine lined up on the people to just help yourself, as if they were sweets or the coffee machine. I think it was just part of the lifestyle, part of the whole thing about being in a rock and roll band or in the entertainment industry at that time, and it's absolutely synonymous with the music and embedded in the music, isn't it?
Yes.
That's how we got those big sounds, man.
Exactly.
We need it bigger. We need it bigger. I need more intensity.
But it was also currency as well. I mean, because the other thing that's in the title is the payola things. I think Billy Squire says, the whole thing that's, radio programmers, managers, and people like from record companies would visit radio programs. And one of the things that was an incentive to play their records was a little, a couple of lines of cocaine surreptitiously handed out. So it was a currency that went along with it as well.
All right. So that takes, I'm sorry, Holly. I just wanted to.
Go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to get into Lee Abrams, radio executive who kind of formulated this AOR format for radio and just kind of top 40 for FM radio. What's your opinion of Lee? And did you talk to him? Were you able to?
Yes, I did talk to Lee. Yeah,
I'm sure he had some opinions. He's like a Lukather as well, right? He's got some opinions.
You don't have to try that hard with asking Lee a question and waiting for him to answer, because he can expand at length. But he was really interesting. I mean, I think you'll know better than me. Lee, the whole notion of, as he tells it, he was, it was the point in the 60s, it was very much top 40 generated radio, hit radio. They were aware, or he was aware, that all the music was going on, the Hendrixes, the Creams, things like that, things that were not 4-minute pop songs, which is ironically what AOR ended up becoming. But he said they researched that. He became a radio consultant on the back of saying to people, you can program radio stations differently. They don't need to be 3-minute pop songs. You can go deep into album cuts. You can expand it more than that. The irony being about something that was supposed to be more open-ended and not as prescriptive ended up becoming really, really prescriptive and narrowed down. But yeah, he was a really interesting character. The note also talking about research and the manner in which they encourage stations to research music and to hold these things at some points, arenas filled with people giving opinions on 30-second snatches of music. I thought it was just fascinating from a point of view of marketing, but also as a social history as well.
Yeah, he was the first format guy. Yeah.
And probably I think is heralded as such and ultimately demonized as well, because of there were a lot of I spoke to one or two DJs as well who were very much like, this was the point where we were stopped from being personalities. It became something that you were responding to a crib sheet and not to your own instinct and to what you thought your listeners would like.
No more free form.
Yes.
Sorry, Jim Ladd.
Well, Jim Ladd still got to play what he wanted to, but yeah, I guess they made like these program directors started to make like this is the song we got to play, Don't Stop Believing, at least every 2 hours now, because this is the hit. This is the calls are coming in. This is give the people what they want.
It tests well.
It tests very well.
Yeah, exactly. That's and that's become the norm for films, for TV, for everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
So when was the first time you were able to see these bands growing up in concert?
I'm trying to think of the first one I would have seen. I mean, ironic, probably Meatloaf, which doesn't necessarily slip into the book, but that sort of big, overblown American production.
Yeah.
So that would have been 1980, in Birmingham, West Midlands in England, and at the place called the NEC Arena. So that was the first time I've seen, and I'm not sure whether Bruce Kulick was playing guitar at that point. I think Todd Rundgren was in the band, the touring band at that point. But that would be the first time I saw that sort of production, that sort of big American thing. And then any time something like that came over, I mean, the American bands, Journey just didn't come to the UK. They just never came with Steve Perry. So there was never an opportunity to see Steve Perry. Certainly not while I was growing up. I don't think they did. I would be reading reviews of Journey. They didn't come. Toto were frequent visitors, especially latter day, and Foreigner as well. But yeah, never got to see Journey. I've never, because I don't want to see Journey without Steve Perry. I'm not accepting Journey without Perry.
There is no Journey without Steve Perry.
No, it's not acceptable.
They still, here in America, although I think the lead singer, the current lead singer has left. I don't know what's going on with Journey right now, but they were still filling up arenas. There's still a huge demand for this music. I mean, they just want to hear it, you know? Doesn't matter.
It's all about the songs, isn't it? I mean, it is
the songs, right? That's what holds up.
Who's performing them doesn't seem to matter that much anymore. It's just about being able to hear those songs recreated.
So what do you think about, like, Foreigner is touring now with 0 original members? Would you see Foreigner?
I did see, because I did a ghosted a project for Mick Jones. So I went to see them. It was Mick doesn't. I mean, obviously Mick's now his health has meant he's unable to tour. He played. He was playing infrequently with them, and they did a gig at the Albert Hall. I think Mick's view of it's interesting. Mick says, it's almost like, he's passing the torch on, and they're keeping the spirit of the band alive. I guess it's personal choice. If you want to go and hear the songs, you go and hear the songs. I'd like to me, it's Lou Gramm, Mick Jones, and that version of Foreign. That's Foreign. This is more of a sort of tribute act.
It's interesting though, because that's a band that's sanctioned by the original band. Maybe there's a little. I agree with you. I think it would be hard to go without either Mick Jones or Lou Gramm, but being sanctioned by the band themselves, and sometimes like Rick Wills, wasn't he saying that he sometimes gets up and plays with them? There are a couple of original members occasionally. Maybe that's a draw, but I think people do want to hear the song. There are people that go because they want to hear the music.
I mean, with Heart, it's Anne and Nancy, isn't it? It doesn't really matter to anybody with the greatest respect to anybody else in the band. It's people go and see Anne and Nancy Wilson and want to hear those songs.
Yeah. With Heart, this was educational for me too. Even being a fan of the music and knowing a lot about the bands, I didn't know about Heart's origins, about that it wasn't really their band to begin with, that was almost a marketing thing.
Yeah, and I didn't. I mean, the history of Heart is they predate the Boston album. They're obviously the first album. I think it's 1975, isn't it? The first Heart album came out, but they go back into the 60s with Anne and Nancy. Nancy playing coffee shops, and then Anne joins this other band that are just playing around the clubs, and the whole thing. It's just a really interesting story, and I think Anne and Nancy particularly fascinating alongside Pat Benatar. That women fronting rock bands at that point in time, and what they endured through doing that is another sort of side narrative of the book. I was asked the other day who the most enjoyable interview I did for the book, and hands down it'd be Nancy Wilson. I thought she was, and I really enjoyed speaking to Ann Wilson, but Nancy Wilson was just brilliant, because a rock guitar hero just happened to be a woman in the 70s. Utter rarity, and she was delightful and really, really, really interesting as well.
Great to hear.
Did you talk to Lee Abrams about like this? We can only play one female an hour or something like that. Okay, so what was his? What's the theory on? We don't want to hear females on the radio.
Totally down to that, nakedly down to audience testing and what they deduced from that, and that carried on into MTV as well. You know, the notion of MTV that obviously MTV was pilloried at one point for, you know, the portrayal of women in videos, and
black people
and black people, yeah, and that
all minorities, yeah.
In their view, I spoke to a guy called Les Garland, who was one of the founding executives of MTV, who's another big personality, and he was like, you know, we had a group of people at the station who vetted things if they felt they crossed moral grounds, and we were almost like curators. I mean, we put it up on the wall, and if people object to it, we take it down. If they want more of it, we put something else up. So the defense usually is we give the audience what they want. I'm not entirely sure that's solid ground to be standing on, but there you go.
Yeah. Hey, I'm wondering, can you see the Super Bowl where you live?
Yeah, we can see this. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Are you aware of what's going on in America, like with the halftime show?
I'm aware that there's a degree, more than a degree of interest about how Green Day are going to open the show, and then what, if anything, Bad Bunny is going to say. So yeah. It's very, very interesting.
And there's and
the alternate
Kid Rock is doing an alternate show. Yeah, it's still we're back in mid 70s and 80s again.
In the dark ages.
Yeah, it's the dark ages again. Will you watch the Super Bowl? Just curious. Do you have any interest in that?
I'm not. I've been to one American football game. I enjoyed going to a baseball game, I have to say, more than an American football game as an experience. But I will wake up the next morning keen to see exactly what song Green Day have opened with. I think, like a lot of people, I know the one I hope they do.
Yeah. Oh, they'll be playing American Idiot. Of course they will.
Good.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I want to, your book is in 5 different parts. You have New Frontiers, Take It on the Run, Jukebox Heroes, No Breaks, and Don't Stop Believin'. And how did you divide those up? What are those sections, and what does it mean to you why did you do that?
Now you've got me there, because I have to think back to what I might have been thinking. I think it's like I said, it's the notion of telling a story. So there's obviously a first part is things coming together and coalescing. There's a point at which things start to take off. I suppose the middle part of the book is as this whole thing crests commercially, creatively, whatever you want to call it. And then the end of the book is kind of the two things, that the point at which it sort of passes out of fashion. Bands split up, egos run out of control, and then there's the coda as you fast forward 20 years and this music just comes back again and seems to be everywhere and enduring again. It was that, like that, and obviously because it's a long book, I think there's 120,000 words or something like that. I think the idea that you could break it up into sections and you could dip in and out of it if you choose to do that, I think it makes it just that little bit easier to access and to read.
Does that happen often with books? Just curious, with a is it an oral history? Why dipping in and out? Because to me, it's a history. It's a you want to read it in order. I wanted to read it in order, but maybe because I'm particularly interested in the music and the development of the bands and the era and the format.
No, I'm totally with you. I mean, I'm old fashioned in the sense that start at the beginning, finish at the end, but I think there are people who just flick, dip, go back to, and I don't think it precludes you reading it all the way through. I think it does make it that little bit more less foreboding if you don't want to sit and read it from cover to cover.
Yeah, and I think people would find it helpful that you list the whole cast of characters in the beginning, so if somebody's particularly interested, they can find that person, read what they have to say.
If you do want to know who the bass player in Asia is, or was, there's where you find
out. Okay. I was wondering, so now, I mean, the music lives on. It's because of being played on TV shows and now on social media, get, these TikTok moments for, it's kind of essential for, I guess it's wonderful for the bands because they're getting these new audiences, are discovering it that way. Are there people pushing this music still, or is it just people who grew up, who were raised on radio, that remember these songs like, oh, this is going to be the perfect song?
I think it's a bit of both. I think, but I think it's also, it's probably because it was such a, it was such, we've had that conversation. There are so many people who probably grew up on this music who are now working in television and in film and in entertainment. And if you're looking for music that goes on anything that's instantly memorable or that makes people sit up, these are great pop songs and they're definitive of an era. And I think it all comes back to that. I mean, David Chase from probably Don't Stop Believing's use in The Sopranos is the most famous use of a piece of music imaginable. And he said, he cut that final scene to that song, and it was a song that he just remembered and thought was entirely appropriate and synonymous with the era, synonymous with something that Tony Soprano would find and listen to on a classic rock stage. Yeah. And I think that's it. It's just so evocative of time and place, that music. Lots and lots of people remember those songs, and I think are probably picking up on those songs. Well, I think Steve Lucas was saying about Africa, it's developed a whole new life of its own because it was used in Stranger Things. People have gone back now, and it's so much easier now, isn't it? Via Spotify and other streaming services to hear something and then just click of a button, you can listen to it. And I think that it's those things have made the discovery of music easier and more accessible to millions of people.
That's funny because discovery is an issue for older people. Discovery is an actual issue, but for younger people who can search for these, heard it from their parents or heard it, just wherever that it's easy for them to find. But discovery, I find to be, as an old person, overwhelming. I count on Dave.
but they don't have. There's no baggage either. One of my sons is. He's 21 now, but when the fourth season of Stranger Things came out, if you remember, the trailer for that had Journey Separate Ways on it, and he was, it was out on TikTok, and he was running around to me going, "What is this piece of music?" And he has absolutely he just think that's a brilliant song. I love that song, and he would download that song, and from there other Journey songs, but he has no knowledge nor care of who Journey were, how they were perceived. He just loves the song, and he loves the song. So I think that's the way it works now, isn't
it? Now he can read the book. I can find out more about the players behind Journey.
If I can get him to actually read a 600-page book, I've more than that's some kind of miracle.
True. It might be the age, because we also in our 20s we were discovering music. In our teens, you go back. I know music before I was born. That's how, because it's just natural curiosity. Now we're just kind of because we're of a certain age. It's like, oh, our brain is filled with the music that's stuck in our head. I tend to gravitate to music that reminds me of music back in the 70s and 80s, back during the AOR age, and I discover I love Geese because they remind me of like these bands from that era as well. So it continues. I think this music's going to be living on for a long time. I hope.
Let's hope so. No matter how much people want to mock it.
But I think I think that's the good thing that that all pervasive access to music has done. It's stopped that sort of snobbishness about music, that sort of chin stroking about music. I'd say I love that Geese record, and I love Cameron Winter's solo record. I think it's an absolutely brilliant record. But I've always been that way. I listen to that, and I'm quite happily listened. Last night I listened to the Cameron Winter record, and then go and listen to a Rush album. They're just great records, and I think that's where my sons are certainly at that point. They just like it. Doesn't matter where it's from. Doesn't matter what's been written about it. Doesn't matter what the people making the music look like. They just respond to a piece of music, and whether they like it or not, and whether it reminds them of something else. And I think that's a good thing. That's a good and healthy thing.
What Rush album?
It was Power Windows.
Oh, wow.
Have you
Okay,
introduced
Joyce.
your son? Have you introduced your son to Rush yet?
I'm trying. I'm having slightly more of an issue at the moment with Rush. I think they're struggling with Geddy Lee's voice at the moment. They will get there in time.
It's the whole picture. If you can get past his voice, it's the musicianship, and they will come to appreciate it as our kids have done.
The one thing I haven't got him on is he plays the drums, so he is fascinated with Neil Peart, and watching Neil Peart, they've seen those things where they film from above what he was doing, that incredible thing he was doing. So he's interested in that. So that's our start.
That's I think that's what reels some kids in, is the drumming. Yeah.
Has he gone through your record collection? Do you see him once in a while? Like, you can take take.
It's just really, I mean, it's that thing, isn't it? That generation thing. I mean, when I was growing up, my parents' record collection was unfathomable to me, because it was. My dad was into big bands and jazz, and you get to a certain age, and there's some. You go and check out records from there, from that as well. At the time, it was just, I didn't want to listen to that. But I think we're much closer now, aren't we? There's much more sharing of things, and I listen to things. I went with them to see Kendrick Lamar, my two sons, last summer, and we all thought it was brilliant. Yeah. So I think I like that about music now, that you can through generations, you can share it and enjoy it together. I think it's a good thing.
Play him some Buddy Rich. Watch his mind just.
I've done exactly that. Got this Buddy Rich. I don't know if you've seen it. There's a film of him doing a Sinatra thing where he breaks out into a drum solo, which is absolutely mind-boggling.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. Great music's great music. Doesn't matter what it sounds like, what it's categorized as.
Yeah.
I will say, so with Lukather, I would imagine, as soon as I said yacht rock, if Lukather was listening, he would roll his eyes. I know he hates that term.
If he was listening, his head would explode.
Yeah. So my apologies for listening. Yeah. Well, okay. And what is his? No musician wants to be put into a group, right? I mean, they all we're just making music. So
I think Lukather's thing, and right, I think Lukather's eternal frustration has been just lack of recognition, and I don't think that means he would expect everybody to like everything that he's done, or I think Toto particularly, Lukather can quote you the damning reviews and that they had over the years. I think just a recognition that they were good at what they did, and that Jeff Porcaro is as good a drummer as anybody who's ever sat behind the Rock Band's drum kit. He's a phenomenal musician, and they were all phenomenal musicians. And I think he just wanted that acknowledgement that we were good at what we'd done, and we've sustained it for 50 years. And that recognition, I think they're getting a little bit of it now. The lifespan that Africa has had, and I think recognition that it's a great song. It's a fabulous song.
Okay, the one thing that blew my mind when they were searching for a lead singer, they were 3 days away from a particular guy. Can you tell us this story?
Well, yeah, Michael McDonald had just arrived. Because the one that blew my mind before that was that Leo Sayer was considered for the job. If you grew up in England in the 70s, the thought of Leo Sayer fronting Toto is quite remarkable. But Michael McDonald had come to town. David Paich was absolutely adamant that they needed a singer, because he was singing on the initial demos, and he worked with Foreigner. So he'd heard Lou Gramm. He was a big fan of the first Boston, so they wanted that sort of singer who could, hit the high notes. They heard Michael McDonald. He was the guy they wanted in the band, and they offered him the gig. And McDonald, I think it was 3 or 4 days, as you said, he just accepted an offer to join the Doobie Brothers. So Michael McDonald would have been the Toto singer if they'd got there 4 days early.
And unimaginable now, knowing what we know.
Yeah. I mean, I think the pop world is better for that. Everyone, we got
both. You got both.
It worked out. It worked out all right. I'm happy with the results. But yeah, it was just so funny. And I guess, I mean, to hit those high, is that a defining sound for AOR? Like for you, to hit the Lou Gramm, the Brad Delps of the world that could hit those notes Steve Perry, that was essential to get the radio airplay, or
Yeah, I mean the high tenor vocal is is pretty much de rigueur for if you're going to be an AOR band. And it was really interesting as well, talking to people who'd produced their records, who played on those records, who'd sung on those records, how difficult that was, how much of a strain that was on a voice. But be asked to do that night after night after night. I think lots of people in the bands, David Page talks about it, the singers will work really, really hard. And I think it's part of the thing that Steve Perry talks about a lot, that sort of how it's difficult for musicians to understand that the voice is a vocalist's instrument, and he would wake up every day on tour wondering if he got a voice for that night because you just didn't know. And I think that probably anecdotally is one of the things that stopped him from touring and playing and going out and doing it, that eternal pressure of not knowing whether you're going to be able to hit the note. But yeah, they will work really hard. I mean, those guys were extraordinary, and they will work really, really hard.
Yeah, the stories that we used to hear later on, like probably into the 90s, about Steve Perry's voice, and people would speculate about, is he ever going to sing again? And yeah, I mean, he's an icon. But I, as you're saying it, all the other, like Survivor, the other high voices, I mean, that must have caused so much damage by now.
Well, I think it was. I think it was Lucas said it was like asking someone to run a marathon.
Yeah.
Every night.
Yeah. I was thinking of baseball. Like with baseball now, it's just starting pitchers have to throw as hard as they can, for 5 innings, and they're just, after a few years they have to go through surgery because they do what they have to do. And
I think it's the same thing with these guys, isn't it? That you can't sing, you can't sustain that indefinitely. Eventually, you have to rein it back in and drop the pitch of it.
Yeah, I was wondering who. Well, I guess is Pat Benatar still touring, and so she could still hit those notes. Hart is still the women are doing it.
Yeah,
she's adapted though. Pat's adapted her voice. Yeah,
I think they've all learned to control it, and I think if you listen to Perry, certainly on By Street Talk, the solo album he did, there is a pulling back of that and a more of a control over that, because you just can't do what he was doing for year after year. It's just not physically possible, isn't it?
See, you gotta be like Bob Dylan, just kind of change your voice all the time and adapt, and just this is the way I'm going to sing. You deal with it or don't. I mean,
God love Bob. I'm not sure he's ever sung a power ballad though.
No, I know. Yeah, he's Dylan is a whole other thing. That's a whole other can of worms there.
Okay, so how do you feel about Steve Perry's solo stuff? Did you run out and buy it?
To this day, I love Street Talk. I think it's a fabulous record.
Yeah,
I think that record stands up. I mean, I'm one of the greatest disappointment for me doing the book. I love doing the book, but I couldn't get to speak to Steve Perry. I do think if you picked one figure from the whole era who, for me, stands above all others, it would be Perry. I think he's just a phenomenal musician, and the guy. The first time I heard him sing "Escape," it just took the breath away, and I still think he's a remarkable character, really fascinating character, really interesting man. I spoke to various people at times who've met him or worked with him. I spoke to E from the Eels about hooking up with Perry in the most bizarre way, because I don't know. I'm sure you remember. Perry came back with the Eels on stage. That was the first, but he told me the whole narrative of how that happened. And
weird.
He's just a fascinating guy, Steve Perry, absolutely. And I think it's Kolodner in the book who said, hands down, that's the great rock voice of all time, and he's not wrong.
Yeah, I was fortunate. My first rock concert was ELO at Anaheim Stadium, and Journey was the opening band. Infinity had just come out. and nobody really knew. I don't think they got airplay back then. You know, I didn't know any of this. I was still early teen. I don't think anybody knew this music, but I remember watching like, wow, people really like, I didn't know at the time, like no one knows this band, but I think in this stadium, they won over a lot of new fans, and they like later after, in the fall, they just kind of exploded and they were off and running. So, clearly they had a great live show as well.
Tell you what, that's some bill, ELO and Journey.
Yeah. So I saw them. I remember that, but I saw them the next tour at the Forum. They opened.
Yeah,
Journey. Yeah.
There was a guy when I used to work on Kerrang, a guy who was a guy called Stefan Shirazzi, who's San Francisco based, who was a Metallica. It still is. I think he works for Metallica. So he was very much of that ilk, and he spent his whole professional career advocating against Journey, and then was forced to go and see them on the Raised on Radio tour, and came back saying, "Take it all back. That was one of the best shows I've ever seen." So I'm deeply envious of people who saw Journey with Steve Perry.
Yeah.
Did you try and reach out to Rolling Stone and kind of get they talk to Jan about what was going on, why they would never put an AOR band on the cover? I don't think any of the, as I'm looking at the list, there's clearly Toto, REO Speedwagon, a Night Ranger. I don't. Were any of these artists ever on the cover? Yeah.
No, Foreigner weren't. As to the best of my knowledge, Foreigner, Journey, Boston, Toto, REO Speedwagon.
It was like a war between Rolling Stone and arena rock bands.
And no, I didn't, because I to be honest, I don't. I think that Jan's done his own book. There's been enough written on Rolling Stone. I think the narrative from their point of view is fairly obvious. You just have to read the review section of the magazine. And I've read Rolling Stone. I've no personal axe to drive Rolling Stone, but I think that they weren't interested in that music in the same way that at the time, in a contemporary sense, they weren't writing about Led Zeppelin particularly, or Black Sabbath, or any of those things. They just set their tent poles up on the ground they thought was credible music. This didn't count it. So I thought it was more important in the book that the artists themselves had a voice about what they thought about it. Lukather claims that they were belatedly offered a cover of Rolling Stone in the aftermath of Toto 4 in Africa, and they turned it down. I won't use the specific words he uses to describe why they turned it down, but they turned it
down. We like to talk about Rock Hall, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Will any of these bands, the bands that never got on the cover, would a Toto be considered for the Rock Hall now, or do you think they might ever get in?
Well, I think they should. I mean, Journey are in, Foreigner are in, Heart are in. So there's a lot of those bands I think Boston are in as well. A lot of those bands have gone in. I think the Toto thing's more than just Toto. You look at the list of records that those guys have played on. That's pretty much a roll call of 80s and 90s music, and important records, 70s as well, important records. And I think that their contribution to music as a whole is vast and varied, and I think they should be in there without any shadow of a doubt.
Do you, Dave?
Toto?
Yeah.
I think maybe they'll do it in the backdoor way. They seem to do like the acknowledgement of past achievements, and so maybe as individuals, I don't know if they would put Toto. I don't know. I think they deserve it. I don't know if they will actually get.
Yeah, I don't know what they should.
But I think Lukather, those guys like Lukather should definitely be in. Like as a contributor to so much amazing music, including Toto music. So Toto might be just like kind of some sort of word. So I don't know the word I'm looking for, but just like
a symbol of something.
Just a symbol of AOR music that was just not faceless corporate rock. They're just that's kind of like Chicago, Toto, bands that they didn't even put their faces on album covers. So that was another thing maybe. But
their contribution was too big. They're eligible. They're eligible now, right? But they're not. I know.
I know. There's a lot of bands that should be in there that are not. Well, we'll see. I don't know. Time will tell, I guess. Only time. Yeah. What was the Asia song?
Only time will tell.
Yeah.
Exactly right, yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, good pull.
So, all right, Holly, we got anything else? You good?
I feel like I could talk about this forever, the individual bands forever, but no, I mean, I love the stories. Dave and I come from different, like, I love the family stuff. I love hearing about the back, not just the juicy gossip, but I love hearing their stories. I mean, all of them, I love hearing and how they intermingled. So it was, yeah. I loved hearing about Pat and Neil's, how they met and how it was instant. I love this stuff. I eat it up.
Yeah. Can we? What else? What do you got? What's on the burners now? What? Yeah.
I can't. In this terrible thing that there is a thing that I'm working on and it's in the mix, but I can't actually say what it is because it's going through that whole Byzantine web of publishers and all the rest of it. But yeah, there is a thing that I'd like to do and hope to do next, which is not a million miles away from the Raised on Radio thing. Hopefully I'll be able to come on and talk to you when it's done.
Anytime.
Okay, that's something we're getting
yeah, we're not breaking. It's not breaking news, but it's something. Are you gonna? John Mellencamp is playing. He's playing the Bowl this summer. Is he coming out to the UK? Are you gonna go? No,
not at the moment. I mean, I'd love for him to come here, but no, he's not because I think it's billed as a hits tour, isn't it? So he's and I do love John. I think he's a magnificent character. I love the video, if you've seen it, that they used to promote the tour, where it's John walking on a treadmill, smoking a cigarette.
Yes.
He just sums him up perfectly.
There's an NPR show called Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, where you have to, guess these stories that are fake and what is true. One of them is at Indiana Stadium. They've created a smoking shack for John Mellencamp, so he can go up there and just smoke away as much as he wants and still watch the game. So it's the Mellencamp shack is what they call it.
You know you've made it when someone creates your own little room in a stadium just for you, don't you?
Yeah. I'd love that. It's brilliant. All right. World Cup predictions. If you must be a football fan, like a real football fan.
I am. I don't know. I just England will find some way to fail spectacularly. That's the only thing that's guaranteed.
Okay. Very good.
High hopes. No, that's too bad. You look forward to it. I feel bad if you don't. You feel bad for some of our people.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't. Let's not even go there. But whether it does go ahead, should go ahead, etc. There's all sorts of. It's a dreadful time, isn't it?
But there's the women's team. I tell you.
Yeah.
They're champions.
Yeah, I think I would pass out from the shock if England won it. So maybe it's just it doesn't happen.
Okay, wait. Speaking sport, what baseball? You said you've been to a baseball game in the States. What team?
Yeah. It was Seattle Seahawks. I was doing an interview with Pearl Jam, and Kelly Curtis, who's Pearl Jam's manager, very, very kindly and graciously gave us a bunch of tickets. Or I think he gave us his tickets. So we went to see the Seattle Seahawks play Oakland, and it was brilliant. The people at the stadium were just wonderful. The whole atmosphere was great, and there was a biblical storm in the middle of the seventh inning, so it was memorable in lots of ways.
Holly, you want to correct it?
The Mariners.
The Mariners. It's the football team, isn't it? The Mariners.
Yes, exactly.
I apologise. Yeah, not the football team.
Your nationality is showing, Paul.
It is ignorance and nationality all in one package.
As if we could. Well, Dave is well versed in your sport, but
a little bit. I do. All right. So, thanks, Paul. This was really great. The book is great. Raised on Radio, a Steve Perry quote.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's out now. Go ahead. Tell us. Go ahead. Sell us on the book.
It's out on the 24th February in the US and the UK, and it's available to pre-order now from all the usual reputable outlets, and probably some that aren't reputable as well.
All right.
Check those first.
This will come out after the 24th, like right after the 24th. So
it will be out good and ready then.
Excellent.
And we'll wait patiently for your next one.
I would love to talk to you again after when that one's done. It's an experience.
Well, congratulations on the book. It was it's wonderful. We loved it, and great to go down this rabbit hole of all this music and these artists, and I love all this music, and the stories are wonderful. So thanks for sharing that with us, Paul. Really,
yes, thank you for talking to us about it and spending so long.
Thank you very much for having me as well. It's been a real pleasure.